under the law of the Messiah is fornication. Another word for fornication can be used, which is immorality. Three or four things fall under immorality you want to note down. Immorality includes adultery, homosexuality, lesbianism, incest, and bestiality, and most recently, transgender. Fornication is immorality, adultery, homosexuality, lesbianism, incest, and bestiality. That's the only basis for divorce. Once again, divorce is not commanded, but permitted. Never forget this. I need to go back to this all the time. And believe you me, confession, I don't mind saying this because that's the truth. You're talking to a divorcee. I went through that kind of stuff. I'm not going to give you any details of it. And now I'm behind a lectern teaching it to the people. The desire of my soul would be to imitate my mom and dad, that for the major part, if not almost all the part of their life, was they were in immorality. They came to Christ because of my testimony at the end of their lives. But they were married for 50 some years, and that was my desire. It turned out not to be this way, but now I need to teach you this. Never forget this for now. So divorce is not commanded, but permitted. The biblical ideal is this. Even in the New Testament time, the principle of Malachi operates. What is the principle of Malachi? I said it 3 times. He hates divorce. So, having said all that about the teaching of Jesus, on which side do you think Jesus is standing? Hillel or Shammai? Shammai, you're right. The narrower view. Now, you can only divorce in the New Testament based upon adultery and immorality. Okay? How about remarriage? We're talking about remarriage right now. It is clear that there is no remarriage for the guilty party. The guilty party, it's clear, cannot remarry. So if you have committed adultery or the man commit adultery, you can repent of it, it's forgivable, but you don't get remarried. There is a perfect silence for the innocent party. The Bible is perfectly silent for the innocent party. Some denominations, some segments of Christianity extend the prohibition to both parties. Some denominations, some church, they extend the prohibition to both parties. Those who forbid remarriage only for the guilty allow the innocent party to remarry. So some clear no one is getting married. Those who forbid remarriage only for the guilty party, allowing the innocent party to remarry. That's the 2 view. So the basis for divorce is very limited. Don't forget the biblical ideal. In verse 10 of Matthew, the disciples say unto him, if the case of the man is so with his wife, it is not expedient to marry. You can laugh. It's not a very high view of marriage that they have right there. Okay? Matthew verse 11, he answers to them, to whom it is given. I don't go to the eunuch issue. I don't go to that. Everything that I said is not the totality of the teaching of divorce in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. Make a note. Everything that I just said to that point, I'm going to need 15 minutes from you, isn't the totality. It's not the totality of the teaching on divorce in both the Old Testament and the New. It's a summary here of divorce and remarriage in both Old Testament. I carry on here with the teaching on this. Under the Mosaic law in the Old Testament, there was two grounds for divorce. Under the Mosaic law, there was two grounds for divorce. The first one was sexual incompatibility, based upon Deuteronomy 24. Sexual incompatibility was a ground for divorce, not the ideal. The ideal is this: discover that it's not fitting, but you know what, wife? I'm going to keep you anyway. That's the biblical ideal. Easy to say, not easy to do. The second ground for divorce in the Old Testament time is found in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. In that case of Ezra and Nehemiah, it's not sexual incompatibility, it is religious incompatibility. Religious, not compatible, is worshipping pagan gods. They needed in the time of Nehemiah to divorce their Gentiles' wife, worshipper of gods. They were say, divorce them. And it is clear from the Old Testament that it permitted remarriage if a proper divorce, number 1 and 2. It allows the person to remarry in the Old Testament. Now, this is where the tires meet the road a little bit. The two grounds that I just gave you of legal divorce or proper divorce of the Old Testament are now rescinded or cancelled by the teaching of Christ. That's why it is important to divide the scriptures correctly concerning this issue. Sexual incompatibility is rescinded by this paragraph here, this section, Mark 10 and Matthew 19. Religious incompatibility is rescinded also by 1 Corinthians 7. In 1 Corinthians 7, a believer cannot divorce a mate because he is an unbeliever. In 1 Corinthians, a believer cannot divorce the mate. It works for both sexes if the person is an unbeliever. So that's religious incompatibility. It's rescinded by 1 Corinthians chapter 7. A believer cannot initiate divorce because the partner is an unbeliever. So there is now two new grounds for divorce in the NT, and this will cause an end to my biblical teaching on it. Number 1, we saw it already, Matthew 19:19, fornication and immorality, which is the same, bestiality, homosexuality. It's a ground for divorce. However, it's not the biblical ideal behind me. And the second ground for divorce today is in 1 Corinthians. Now you go into your Bible in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. First Corinthians chapter 7 verses 12 to 15. Listen closely. 12 to 15. Paul speaking. This is the second ground for divorce. 12 to 15. But to the rest I say, not the Lord, that if any brother has a wife who is an unbeliever, and she consents to live with him, he must not divorce her. And a woman who has an unbelieving husband, and he, the husband, consents to live with his wife, she must not send the husband away. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified through his wife, not saved, but an umbrella of Christian protection. Okay? Through his wife. And the unbelieving wife is sanctified to her believing husband, for otherwise your children are unclean, but now they are holy. Basically, it doesn't matter the belief of the children also. There is kind of a grace aspect upon the family because you have a believing party, and the one like me who is not an unbeliever, I accept to live with her. Honey, go to church. But he is an unbeliever. Who knows which party can lead the other one to Christ? Now I carry on. I stop where? 14. Yet, if the unbelieving one leaves, let him leave. The brother or the sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God has called us to peace. Okay? Yet if the unbelieving one leaves, if the person goes, let her go, or let him go. This is the second ground for divorce in the New Testament. When one divorces on these two grounds, when a person divorces on these two grounds, what grounds? Fornication and an unbelieving person that wants to go away, it allows the person for remarriage. Under the New Testament, you can get remarried. But always keep in mind the biblical ideal. And I am done on the issue of divorce.
But Jesus said if you look at someone...
It's not the same context. It's not you have committed adultery. It's when he raised the bar of the Mosaic law here. He makes it higher, and it does not pertain to divorce. It's the attitude of the heart before the gesture. It's where the heart is before the act. It's not the same context. It's not the teaching of divorce. What you have seen, if your eyes, Jesus said, if you look upon a woman with desire, you have already committed adultery. And that's why in another passage he said, if you stumble with your eyes, pluck it out, and so on. Am I going to pluck out my eyes? It means deal with the root of the issue. Because what leads to adultery, basically, it's lust and so forth. So God goes to the core point before the external act of it. Where did it start? So it's not the same context. What you have seen tonight, all of you, not only Caroline, this is a complete survey of the biblical issue of divorce in both Testaments. Not Joe Blow's writing, not rabbinical writing, not Louis Spurgeon or Billy Graham or Matthew's Henry commentary. You have looked at no commentary. We have looked at the scriptures.
I guess I'm struggling, like, I have so many questions and I know we can't answer them all, but like, husbands are out there violently beating their wives to the point where they can kill them.
Mm-hmm.
That wife shouldn't have to stay because Jesus gave the command, love your wife like I love you.
Look,
so they're breaking...
that's it.
It's so
I
complicated.
think in that case,
It's a world.
between them.
It's a world upside down now. It's completely upside down. If it doesn't beat the wife, maybe beats the kids whatsoever. I don't want to get outside the context of what was said. How can a wife stay there? The biblical ideal is forgiveness, restoration, and reunion. Get your husband fixed. What if he doesn't fix? Get him fixed, try again, and you're going to die soon. That's the biblical ideal, and I cannot, as a Bible expositor, deviate for this. There is two new grounds in the New Testament for divorce. It's fornication / immorality, and if the unbelieving party wants to go, you let him go. And it allows you to get remarried, but now if you go to a church, they might say otherwise. Once again, I don't mean to be rude with this, those online and Vicky on the video. All of you have your story, and I just told you. You will never know my story unless I decide to give it as a testimony. You're talking to a Bible expositor that has been divorced and remarried. That's all it is. It's very difficult to look at this. And when people come in my office, I have a brother-in-law, I do not even listen to this because I have only one version of the case. That's it. and I cannot judge or you have a right divorce. I would need to have the divorcee, you and your ex-husband, you explaining the issue and teaching what the Bible teach. If I only listen to her, I have her version. Where is the husband? I cannot judge this.
Francois, is that 1 Corinthians 7, verses 10 and 11?
No,
Addressing that question?
no, this is 1 Corinthians 7, 12 to 15.
Right, but chapter 7, verse 10 and 11, well, verse 11, if she does leave, let her remain unmarried or else be reconciled.
But to Mary I give instruction, not I, but the Lord, that the wife should not leave her husband. Is that what you read? But if she does leave, must remain, or else reconcile to her husband, that the husband should not divorce his wife. Yeah, I did not cover that. What?
Like, in that case, the question was there, let her remain unmarried.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But if she does leave, she must remain unmarried. Yeah.
yeah,
The guilty party, no remarriage. The innocent party in cases of immorality and so on. It's complicated, but that's basically all I have to say, the biblical ideal.
What I don't understand is